Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. This is Macbeth revision. Macbeth inside 10 minutes, if possible. Okay, we're going to start today by just going through every act, scene by scene, main themes, main quotes, general idea. Act 1, Scene 1, introduction of the witches. Why is that important? Because it introduces, on the one hand, the supernatural, and it introduces, on the other hand, the notion of the driving force behind the play. Without the witches, there is no play. Okay, you need to have those characters to provide the prophecies and to provide some movement behind the play. Scene 2, the introduction of Macbeth. Macbeth has been described as brave and valiant and loyal, and he's the perfect subject for King Duncan. He's also given the title the Thane of Cawdor before he actually hears the prophecies that the witches tell him, which will be in Scene 3. Scene 3, of course, Macbeth and Banquo meet the witches, and the witches give them their prophecies. At this point in the play, Macbeth is still thinking very rationally. He's still thinking, you know, if chance will have me king, then chance may crown me. So he's not thinking about this ambition or this murder plot, which of course which comes later in the play. Moving on to Scene 4, he meets Duncan. We're introduced to Duncan the king, and he says, "Oh, worthiest cousin," which in that scene is interesting because it contrasts with indeed what's happening in Macbeth's mind. The prophecies, it happens quickly, right? I just mentioned he's still thinking rationally in Scene 3. By Scene 4, he's already talking about his deep and dark desires. He's already been influenced by the prophecies. They're starting to take seed in his mind, and he's starting to think, okay, you know, I could get something out of this. Scene 5, perhaps the most famous in this act, it's Lady Macbeth. It's "Unsex me here." It's "Come thick night." It's Macbeth is too full of the milk of human kindness. Okay, so it's her, and it's her reading the letter and thinking, okay, you know what? There's an opportunity not to be missed here. So when her husband comes back, she immediately grasps a hold of him and says, you know what? Let's do this. And he starts to say, no, hang on, this is perhaps not a good idea. And she starts to push and say, well, actually, come on, you know, be a man. Let's do this together. Let's have the ambition to become king and make these prophecies come true. Number 6, scene number 6, Duncan comes to the castle and he meets the Lady Macbeth, and he calls her a fair and noble hostess. And fair is something that we've heard before. Fair is foul, foul is fair. So fair and foul a day I have not seen. So fair is an important word. It has all sorts of different connotations. He also introduces, I suppose, an interesting symbol in the book, and that's the hand. He says, "Give me your hand." And of course, hands will become, especially for her, incredibly important as we continue through the play. Number 7, scene number 7 is of course the first of the famous soliloquies where he talks himself out of killing Duncan. He realises, you know, he's this and he's that. He's a great king, and I'm his host, and he's in my castle, and I'm a good subject. And why on earth would I want to kill him? And of course, then Lady Macbeth comes and says, "Hey, you know, come on, be a man. If I was in this position and I had said I would do it, I'd be prepared to kill my own children in order to do that." I've written here matricide. So eventually, she changes his mind, and he says, "Okay, you know, let's do it." Act 2. The second of his soliloquies, Fleance and Banquo have their small chat at the beginning. Then, of course, we have "Is this the dagger I see before me?" And it's the introduction of more supernatural elements, the symbolism of appearance, or the theme of appearance, I should say. Macbeth's mind is now focused fully on the deed. Never the murder, always the deed. The next scene, lots of noise. The atmosphere has changed. There's knocking and banging and birds, and there's the introduction of perhaps a sense of paranoia for both Macbeth and his wife. She starts to hear sounds and is freaked out a little. Duncan is already by this time dead, remember, and the famous line Macbeth says to his wife, "I have done the deed." He then continues through the rest of that scene talking about how he shouldn't have done it. He's completely remorseful. He's filled with regret and guilt about having done it. And Lady Macbeth is trying to say, you know what, it's okay. But the words that he uses in the scene previously, where he says, you know, this is the bell that will bring Duncan to heaven or hell. He now says, oh, if only that bell could wake Duncan from this eternal sleep, this death that I have induced upon him. Scene 3, Macduff appears. and he finds the body, and it's, oh, horror, horror, and there's the fainting scene, of course, because Macbeth is perhaps acting a little strangely, and she faints and deflects attention and is in complete control of the situation. Malcolm and Donald Bain flee. There's all sorts of suspicions, not yet quite focused on Macbeth, but people are starting to think perhaps there's something wrong here. Scene 4, Ross and the old man. They're talking about stuff. They're bringing the audience up to date. Act 3, we've got the fact at this point that Banquo is starting to suspect Macbeth. He starts to think, hey, hang on, I think you may have paid a dear price for this crown that you've now gained. But at the same time, he's thinking, yeah, but if it's happened for him, then perhaps it'll happen for me. So perhaps my prophecies will come true. Again, that's to do with his, how complicit is he in the murder. He doesn't tell what he knows, therefore he somehow also has a share in the murder of Duncan. We have another of Macbeth's soliloquies, number 3, where he calls his kingship a fruitless crown and a barren sceptre, because of course he knows that Fleance and Fleance's kids will become king, and of course he then decides, right, I'm going to kill Banquo. In the next scene, he complains that his mind is full of scorpions, it's full of doubt, and it's full of fear and guilt and worry, and he doesn't quite know how to deal with it all. And we really start to see the relationship between sleep and death in this scene. And Lady Macbeth says to him, what's done is done. She's very philosophical. She's trying to be in control. She's trying to say to him, you know what, let's not worry about it. We can't undo what we've done, so let's just move on. Something which, of course, will be very different later in the play. Scene 3, Banquo is murdered. Fleance escapes. Scene 4, the famous banquet scene. We spoke about it at length. It's all the quotes. It's, are you unmanned in folly, and blood will have blood, and I am so in blood steeped that blah blah blah, yet we are but young indeed. All these things, Macbeth is consumed by fear when he sees the ghost of Banquo. The table is full, and everyone's like, yeah, but there's a seat here, and he freaks out and says, The fear overcomes him, and again Lady Macbeth shows that she's in charge. She gets rid of all the people around her, and she says, come on, let's try and work this out myself. This is the very painting of your fear, she mentions later. What's the word I'm looking for? She's in complete control of the situation. But by the end of this scene, Macbeth has also regained a certain sense of control, and he starts to say, you know what? We've come this far, so let's just see the course. Let's just continue. There's nothing we can do about it now. I've got so much blood in my hands that why bother turning back? And again, that's why this is important. This is the point where she starts to lose control and he starts to take control. It's the top of the pyramid that I spoke about in class. Very important. Scene 5 is Hecate and the Witches. Probably wasn't written by Shakespeare, not interested. Scene 6, it's another sort of summarising commentary scene. The Lord's talking quite sarcastically about Macbeth. We now know that people start to really doubt and are very suspicious of him. Act 4, Macbeth goes to the witches again. I need to know more. So we see these apparitions of Malcolm and Macduff and Birnam Wood and all these things. And he's thinking, yeah, well, I'm safe. These things can't happen, so I'm not going to worry anymore. Scene 2, despite the fact that he doesn't have to worry about Macduff, he still has Macduff's family killed. He goes and says, right, go and slaughter the whole family. So that's what happens. Scene 3, Malcolm and Macduff having that conversation about trust. Malcolm trying to find out if Macduff's on his side. Macduff trying to find out if Malcolm can come back and take Scotland back from this tyrant and the chaotic situation that they're in. Macduff hears also from Ross that his whole family have been killed, and he has that nice moment where we get the introduction of a man as being both brave and valiant, but also being sensitive. He says, I take it like a man, but I also have to feel it like a man. So that's a nice contrast, especially when we see them in the next act with Macbeth and Macduff together, that sort of valiant, mad man, and this perhaps more sensitive and compassionate person. In Act 5 itself, it's Macbeth's wife having gone mad. The doctor's there, the gentlewoman's there. It's the madness and remorse of which she spoke earlier. She's sleepwalking, but she can't sleep. It's the perfumes of Arabia. It's the hand imagery. It's this, I can't get rid of that little spot, out-damned spot. It's the you know, the Neptune's oceans will not wash Macbeth's hands clean, and all the perfumes of Arabia won't wash Lady Macbeth's hands. She's completely gone. And of course, she interestingly says, what's done cannot be undone, which is again quite a philosophical statement to make, but it says a lot more about her mental state than in scene 3, in Act 3, where she says, yeah, what's done is done. Scene 2, the gathering army, they're kind of gathering, the English forces have arrived, they're on their way up to Scotland. Scene 3, it's all about the prophecies, it's all about Macbeth. I can't be harmed, Birnam Wood won't come to Dunsinane because trees can't walk, all men are born of women, you know, what have I got to fear? So he just continues using the prophecies as the reason for all his actions and all the things that he does. Scene 4, the soldiers do actually become trees, cut down boughs, hold them in front, and let's walk towards the castle as a means of disguise. So in essence, Birnam Wood is indeed coming to Dunsinane. In scene 5, we have the scream, Lady Macbeth has died. How does Macbeth respond? Well, yeah, he's completely unmoved. He's seen so much blood and he's seen so much horror and fear. He doesn't care anymore. He's just like, yeah, whatever. And he looks out and he sees that Birnam Wood, or he hears from his messenger that indeed Birnam Wood is coming to Dunsinane. So he suddenly is, on the one hand, he's lost his wife and he's like, yeah, whatever. On the other hand, he's suddenly, right, give me my armour. If I'm going to die, then I'm going to die fighting, which is, of course, the very valiant Macbeth that we had at the beginning of the play. Scene 6, Seward and Malcolm are discussing tactics. Who's going first, who's going second? Scene 7, young Seward, King Edward of England's son, he goes into battle. Macbeth kills him, and again he's talking about the prophecies. He's saying, yeah, you know what, you were born of women. I've got nothing to fear from you. So poof, kills him stone dead and thinks, yeah, I'm safe as houses. Scene 8, of course, he's very confident. He goes out there and he sees Macduff. And he challenges him almost and says, you know, whatever, you know, the prophecies, they're going to back me up. And Macduff, of course, the revelation in the play, if you like, the climactic moment where he says, well, yeah, but I was untimely ripped from my mother's womb, of course, a caesarean section. And Macbeth is like, oh no, you know, they fight, he cuts his head off, Macduff walks forward with Macbeth's head sort of saying, you know, I've got him, I've killed him, and that's the symbolism of order is restored. You know, chaos is gone. If you want, you can talk about Christianity and religion, but generally now we've got an unlawful country has been returned to a sort of a state of peace. Malcolm is crowned king. Order is restored. Everybody's happy. The end. I hope this helps. Good luck with your test.